There were 3 rules uniformly observed at the Galactic Military Academy. Rule 1. Never touch Erexian's antenna during morning assembly. Rule 2. Always double-check your translator before addressing someone in the mess hall. Rule 3. Absolutely no one, and I mean no one, survived more than 47 minutes in the torture resistance chamber. That 3rd rule? Well, a human was about to obliterate it. My designation is Kelvin, and I serve as a training coordinator for the Academy's Advanced Survival Program. I've held this position for 16 solar cycles, roughly equivalent to 23 Earth years, and I've witnessed every known species in the galaxy succumb within that chamber. The most valiant Thoraxian warriors lasted 32 minutes. The serene Prelian monks, who meditate in active volcanoes, endured for 41 minutes. There was one Zarion who boasted invincibility due to evolving on a planet with 7 suns and oceans of molten metal. He managed 19 minutes before weeping for his egg mother. So, as Cadet Marcus Reeves entered my office that morning, I anticipated the outcome. Humans had only recently joined the Galactic Alliance, barely 3 years prior. They were still novices, eager to prove their worth, yet comically unprepared for the rigorous demands the universe placed on its soldiers. "Sir," he announced, standing at attention with that peculiar human stance, which appeared uncomfortable, but seemingly wasn't. "Cadet Reeves, reporting for torture resistance evaluation." I scrutinized him with both my primary and secondary vision. He was of average height for a human, perhaps 5 feet 10 inches by their system, with short, dark hair and unremarkable brown eyes. His uniform was immaculate, his boots shined, and he possessed an eager expression that invariably vanished within the first 15 minutes inside the chamber. "Sit down, Cadet," I instructed, indicating the chair with my 3rd manipulating arm. "Allow me to explain what you are about to endure." He complied, folding his hands in his lap, as if anticipating a lecture on celestial navigation rather than a detailed account of systematic torment. "The torture resistance chamber," I began, activating the holographic display, "was engineered by the Krillix Combine roughly 200 years ago. It employs a blend of sensory deprivation, sensory overload, psychological manipulation, extreme temperatures, sonic disruption, and controlled hallucinogenic agents to dismantle a subject's mental fortitude." I observed his face carefully. Most cadets would blanch at this point. Some would start perspiring. One Balorian female once actually vomited in my office, which was particularly inconvenient, as Balorians excrete waste through their skin pores. Reeves merely nodded. "Understood, sir." "No, you don't," I countered, leaning forward. "The chamber will exploit every single vulnerability you possess. It will uncover your fears, your doubts, your past traumas, and wield them against you. It will project illusions that aren't real. It will make you hear the voices of loved ones, pleading for it to cease. It will persuade you that you are perishing, that you are already deceased, that everyone dear to you is suffering because of your actions." "Yes, sir," he responded, still composed, still calm. My feeding tendrils twitched in annoyance. This human was either incredibly obtuse, or he genuinely failed to grasp the nature of his voluntary participation. "The average duration before complete psychological collapse," I continued, "is 28 minutes and 33 seconds. The record, 47 minutes, is held by Commander Thra, a Golvian berserker who literally battled a plasma bear bare-clawed during the Andromeda conflict. Are you still certain you wish to proceed?" "Absolutely, sir." Ancestors preserve me. They were all like this. confident until they weren't. "Fine," I conceded, rising. My exoskeleton clicked as I moved, a sound that unsettled most species. Reeves didn't even flinch. "Follow." We traversed the training complex corridors, passing other cadets from countless worlds. A group of Phylaxian students, their crystalline skin refracting light into a spectrum of colors, paused their conversation to watch us. They understood our destination. Everyone always knew. The torture resistance chamber was situated on the facility's deepest level, secured behind 4 separate checkpoints. It had to be. Regulations governed such matters. One couldn't simply have a room designed for psychological destruction adjacent to the cafeteria. As we descended, I made one final attempt. "Cadet, there is no shame in deferring this. You could undertake further preparatory courses, undergo additional mental conditioning, or—" "I appreciate your concern, sir," Reeves interrupted politely. "But I am ready." Famous last words. The chamber itself appeared deceptively simple from the exterior. Just a fortified door with a small observation port and a control panel. Inside, however, thousands of emitters, sensors, and projectors lined the walls. The floor could instantly shift from scorching to freezing temperatures. The air mixture could be altered to induce euphoria, panic, or suffocating dread. The sonic generators could produce frequencies that vibrated one's bones, or sounds so subtle they bypassed conscious thought entirely. "Standard protocol," I explained, bringing up the control interface. "You will remain inside for a minimum of 10 minutes. If you need to exit before that, an emergency release button on the north wall glows blue. After 10 minutes, you may leave at your discretion." The current record is 47 minutes, but I must emphasize there is absolutely no pressure to— "What's the maximum time allowed, sir?" he inquired. I blinked all 4 eyes in sequence. "What?" "The maximum time. Is there a limit to how long someone can stay in the chamber?" No one had ever posed that question to me before, ever. "Technically, safety protocols mandate we extract anyone who remains after 8 hours, I stated slowly. "But that's purely theoretical. No one has ever lasted more than 47 minutes. "So, the 8-hour limit exists only to satisfy bureaucratic requirements?" "Got it," Reeves commented, nodding as if I had just informed him of the mess hall hours. "8 hours maximum, cadet. You're not seriously suggesting—" "I'll do my best, sir," he declared, then stepped into the chamber before I could intervene. The door sealed with a hiss of pressurized air. I stood at the control panel, observing through the window as Reeves surveyed the chamber, taking in the blank walls and the subtle patterns of the emitter arrays. He located the emergency release button, noted its position, then sat cross-legged in the center of the floor. My assistant, a young Brexian named Pell, scuttled over on her 6 legs. "Is that the human cadet, the one from Earth?" "Unfortunately, yes," I murmured, initiating the startup sequence. "Let's get this over with. Standard protocol. Stage 1 intensity." The chamber hummed to life. Stage 1 was always gentle, relatively speaking. The temperature barely dropped to an uncomfortable level. Lights dimmed and pulsed at frequencies known to evoke unease. Subtle sounds, whispers and distant screams echoed from unseen sources. Reeves closed his eyes. "Is he meditating?" Pelix inquired, her antenna twitching with bewilderment. "Apparently," I replied, monitoring the biometric readouts. His heart rate was actually decreasing. "Increase to Stage 2. Stage 2 introduced hallucinogens, airborne compounds formulated to induce paranoia and visual distortions. The temperature fluctuated wildly between hot and cold. The sounds intensified, becoming more aggressive. Whispers escalated into shouts. The walls began to display fragmented, unsettling images, drawn from psychological profiles and tailored to trigger trauma responses. Reeves kept his eyes closed. His breathing remained steady. His heart rate stabilized at what humans considered resting. 10 minutes elapsed. "This is unusual," Pelix remarked, an understatement of the solar cycle. "Stage 3, I ordered, a peculiar blend of irritation and curiosity stirring within me. Stage 3 was typically where most cadets capitulated. The hallucinogens intensified, generating vivid, horrifying hallucinations indistinguishable from reality. The sonic generators targeted the inner ear, causing vertigo and disorientation. The temperature reached extremes. The chamber filled with manufactured odors, ranging from decaying flesh to burning hair. And the psychological assaults became profoundly personal, utilizing data from personnel files to craft specific scenarios designed to shatter mental resistance. The chamber bombarded Reeves with images of Earth in flames, cities crumbling, the voices of humans screaming in terror. It fabricated the sounds of people calling his name, pleading for assistance. It conjured phantom pains, sending signals through his nerves as if he were being cut, burned, or crushed. His breathing hitched once, then regulated itself. 20 minutes. 30 minutes. "Sir," Pelix whispered quietly, "his vital signs are stabilizing. He appears to be entering a sleep state." "That's impossible," I exclaimed, verifying the readings myself. But she was correct. His brainwaves were shifting into patterns consistent with sleep. Not the shallow, restless slumber of someone fleeing reality, but actual, deep, restorative sleep. "Perhaps the chamber is malfunctioning?" Pelix suggested hopefully. I ran a complete diagnostic. Every system was operating flawlessly. The chamber was functioning at stage 3 intensity, emitting enough psychological torment to break a seasoned interrogation specialist. And the human cadet was falling asleep. 45 minutes. He was nearing the record. "Stage 4, I said, almost a whisper. Stage 4 was rarely employed, reserved for elite special forces training, an intensity capable of inflicting permanent psychological damage if misused. The chamber responded instantly. Reality within that confined space ceased to hold any meaning. The surrounding walls evaporated, replaced by boundless abysses or painfully confining spaces. The temperature became unbearable. The sound levels became physically agonizing. The hallucinogens conjured horrors beyond description, cosmic nightmares that assaulted one's very sense of self. Reeves shifted slightly, adjusting his sitting posture. Then he reclined on his side, using his arm as a cushion. 47 minutes. The prior record was exactly 48 minutes. The record was set by the ancestors, Pelix. 50 minutes, 60 minutes, 90 minutes. Soon, other training personnel began to gather at the observation window. The news had spread throughout the facility like wildfire. The human cadet was slumbering in the torture resistance chamber, actually sleeping. Commander Relic, the facility's director, pushed through the crowd. He was a colossal Thoraxian, built like a tank, with armor plating and natural weaponry, capable of tearing through steel. "What is the meaning of this?" he demanded. "Sir, Cadet Reeves has been in the chamber for 93 minutes, I reported, still staring at the readings in disbelief. Stage 4 intensity. He's asleep." Velk's compound eyes fixated on the observation window. We watched in silence as Reeves' chest rose and fell in the slow, steady rhythm of deep sleep. Inside the chamber, the walls displayed images of eldritch horrors. The air cycled between Arctic and furnace-like temperatures, and sonic generators produced sounds that should have been liquefying his internal organs. He appeared remarkably comfortable. "This is unprecedented," Relic stated slowly. "What do we know about human neurological resistance?" "Very little, sir," I admitted. "They've only been part of the Alliance for 3 years. Most of our data is still preliminary." 2 hours passed, then 3. The crowd around the observation window swelled. Cadets from other programs, instructors, even some maintenance staff came to witness the impossible spectacle. Inside the chamber, Reeves rolled onto his back, stretched once, and continued sleeping. "Perhaps humans are immune to the chamber's effects," Pellick suggested. "Or maybe," a voice from the back of the crowd interjected, "humans are just really good at sleeping through anything." That was Instructor Kayla, a Praleon with 4 arms and a cynical sense of humor. She pushed her way to the front, observed Reeves for a moment, then turned to me. "What was his file like? Any red flags, unusual background, special training?" I accessed his personnel record on my datapad. Born on Earth, North American continent, grew up in a city called Detroit. Parents were factory workers. Joined Earth's unified military at 18, served 2 years before being selected for the Academy exchange program. Standard psychological evaluation. No remarkable traits or abilities noted. Average academics, above average physical fitness. No prior military honors or distinctions. "So he's completely ordinary," Kayla remarked. "Apparently not," Relic grumbled, still watching the sleeping human. 4 hours. 5 hours. The crowd had thinned somewhat, people returning to their duties, but a core group remained. This was history in the making, after all, the human who slept through torture. At 5 hours and 37 minutes, Reeves awoke. We all observed as he sat up, rubbed his eyes, and looked around the chamber as if he'd just awoken in his own bunk. He stood, stretched his back with his arms above his head, the way humans do to alleviate stiffness. Then he calmly walked to the emergency release button. The door opened, and he stepped out into the corridor, where approximately 20 personnel stared at him with various expressions of shock, confusion, and awe. "Good morning, sir," he said to me, as if this were completely normal. "Is there a bathroom nearby? I really need to pee." For a long moment, no one spoke. No one moved. We just stared at him. Finally, Palix gestured down the corridor with one of her legs. "Third door on the left." "Thanks," Reeves said cheerfully, and walked off. Commander Relic turned to me, his armored plates shifting with barely contained disbelief. That human just slept for 5.5 hours in a chamber designed to break enemy agents under interrogation. "Yes, sir," I confirmed. There was truly nothing else to say. "And he woke up," Relic continued, "because he needed to use the bathroom." "Yes, sir." "Not because of the psychological torture, the physical discomfort, the hallucinations, or the sonic disruption?" "Correct, sir." Relic was silent for a long moment, his mandibles clicking in what I recognized as deep thought. "Kelvin, I want a full report on my desk by tomorrow morning. Include every detail, every sensor reading, every biometric measurement, and get me every piece of information we have about human sleep patterns and their ability to ignore external stimuli." "Yes, sir," I said, already dreading the paperwork. "And Kelvin," Relic added, turning to leave, "find out if this is normal for humans, or if we just recruited the galaxy's soundest sleeper." As the crowd dispersed and I began compiling my report, I couldn't help but notice one detail that unsettled me more than anything else. When Reeves had woken up and walked out of the chamber, His uniform wasn't even wrinkled. He had slept better in the torture resistance chamber than most of us slept in our own beds. Humans, I decided, were going to be a problem. A big, incomprehensible, deeply unsettling problem. And that was before I learned what happened next. The report I submitted to Commander Relic was 17 pages long and could be summarized in 3 words. We have no idea. The biometric data showed that Cadet Marcus Reeves had indeed entered genuine deep sleep cycles while inside the torture resistance chamber. His brain waves progressed through all the normal stages of human sleep, including something called REM, which apparently involved rapid eye movement and dreaming. His heart rate had been steady, his blood pressure normal, his stress hormones practically non-existent. By every measurable standard, he'd had a better night's sleep than I'd had in the past month. The morning after the incident, I found myself in Commander Relic's office, along with Dr. Sinara, the head of our xenobiology department. She was a Phylaxian, meaning her body was composed of a semi-solid crystalline matrix that refracted light into gorgeous patterns. Right now, those patterns were flickering and agitated orange, indicating she was just as perplexed as the rest of us. I've reviewed human sleep physiology extensively, Doctor, Sinara said, her voice possessing that characteristic chiming quality that Phylaxians had. And I can confirm that what Cadet Reeves did should have been completely impossible. Explain, Relic ordered, settling his massive frame into his reinforced chair. Humans evolved on a planet with predators, Sinara began, pulling up holographic displays of Earth's ecosystem. Dangerous predators, big cats, bears, venomous creatures, other hostile humans. Their sleep patterns developed to be extremely light and easily disrupted as a survival mechanism. Even in modern times, with relatively safe sleeping environments, humans typically wake up from minor disturbances, a loud noise, an uncomfortable temperature, a bad dream. All of these will interrupt human sleep. But Reeves slept through stage 4 intensity, I added, still unable to quite believe it myself. That's not a minor disturbance. That's concentrated psychological warfare. Precisely, Sinara said, her colors shifting to a thoughtful blue. Which brings us to 3 possible explanations. 1. Cadet Reeves has some sort of unique neurological condition that makes him immune to the chamber's effects. 2. Humans have hidden capabilities we don't yet understand. 3. There's something about his personal history that has made him specifically adapted to this situation. I vote for option 1, I muttered. Please let it be option 1. There's only one way to find out, Relic said, standing up. We need to interview him. Kelvin, bring Cadet Reeves to interrogation room 3. Dr. Sinara, prepare a full neurological scan. I want answers. 20 minutes later, Reeves sat across from us in the interrogation room, looking refreshed and alert. He'd apparently gone to the mess hall after his bathroom break and eaten a full breakfast. Several witnesses reported that he'd seemed cheerful, joking with other cadets and complimenting the food, which nobody had ever done before because the food was objectively terrible. Cadet Reeves, Relic began, his voice carrying that deep rumble that made most species instinctively nervous. Do you understand why you're here? I assume it's about the chamber, sir, Reeves replied calmly. Indeed. You lasted 5 hours and 37 minutes in the torture resistance chamber. You were asleep for most of that time. This breaks the previous record by nearly 5 hours. Can you explain how you accomplished this? Reeves looked genuinely puzzled. I just went to sleep, sir. Was I supposed to do something else? I felt my feeding tendrils twitch again. Cadet, the chamber is designed to prevent sleep. It attacks your psychology, creates hallucinations, causes physical discomfort. Most species find it impossible to even sit still, let alone sleep. Oh, Reeves said, nodding slowly. Yeah, I noticed some of that. The temperature changes, the weird noises, the visuals. But honestly, sir, it wasn't much worse than my apartment back in Detroit. There was a moment of absolute silence. I'm sorry, Dr. Sonara said carefully. Did you just say your apartment was comparable to a military-grade torture chamber? Well, not exactly comparable, Reeves admitted. The apartment was actually worse in some ways. The heating was broken, so it would swing between freezing cold and way too hot, depending on whether the landlord remembered to fix it. The walls were thin, so I could hear my neighbors arguing at all hours. Every morning at 5 o'clock, construction would begin outside, and the individual in the apartment below mine frequently practiced the drums poorly at unpredictable times. I exchanged glances with Relic and Shinara, a shared understanding passing between us. Cadet, I slowly began, are you implying that you've learned to sleep through extreme circumstances due to inadequate living conditions? I suppose so, sir, he replied. I mean, before joining the military, I used to work double shifts at the factory. I needed sleep whenever I could get it, regardless of the situation. You just sort of learn to tune everything out and crash hard whenever the opportunity arises. But what about the hallucinations? Shinara pressed. The chamber generates vivid, terrifying imagery designed to trigger trauma responses. Reeves shrugged. I'm accustomed to strange dreams, Mom. Sometimes when you're exhausted, your brain does odd things. I figured it was just part of the test, so I disregarded it and focused on getting some sleep. You ignored concentrated psychological warfare, Brick stated flatly, because you thought it was a weird dream? Yes, sir. Commander Ville leaned back in his chair, which groaned ominously under his weight. Cadet Reeves, I need you to be entirely candid with me. Did you receive any specialized training for this assessment? Any techniques, medications, or enhancements? No, sir. Just regular academy training. And you genuinely found the chamber comfortable enough to sleep? Well, I wouldn't call it comfortable, sir, but I've certainly slept in worse places. At least the floor was flat, and there weren't any bed bugs. I wanted to laugh, scream, or perhaps resign from my position and become a moisture farmer on some tranquil agricultural world where nothing made sense, because at least that would be predictable. Doctor, Senura Volk said, proceed with the neurological scan. The doctor retrieved her medical equipment, a series of sensors designed to map Reeves's brain activity and structure. She meticulously attached them, muttering to herself in her native tongue, which my translator rendered as various technical terms interspersed with what I suspected were expletives. After 10 minutes of scanning, she looked up, her colors shifting to a puzzled purple. Commander, his neurology is entirely normal for a human. No abnormalities, no enhancements, no unusual structures. If anything, he's tediously typical. So, this is just a human thing? I asked, desperately hoping the answer was no. That's what we need to ascertain, Volk said grimly. Cadet Reeves, you're dismissed. Return to your regular training schedule. Kelvin, Doctor, Sinara, with me. We have research to conduct.
After Reeves departed, looking slightly confused but otherwise unperturbed, the three of us withdrew to Relic's office. The commander activated communication channels to Earth's military liaison office.
This is Commander Relic of the Galactic Military Academy, he announced once the connection was established. I need to speak with someone regarding human sleep patterns and environmental adaptation. The human officer who appeared on screen looked weary, which I was beginning to suspect was a permanent state for their species. Her name tag read Captain Williams, and she possessed short gray hair and eyes that had witnessed entirely too much absurdity. "Commander Relic," she sighed, a breath that conveyed years of exhaustion. "What have our cadets done now?" "One of your cadets, Marcus Reeves, slept for 5.5 hours in our torture resistance chamber," Relic explained. "The chamber is designed to psychologically incapacitate enemy combatants. The previous record was 47 minutes. Can you account for this?" Captain Williams was silent for a long moment. Then she began to laugh. Not a polite laugh, but the deep, uncontrollable laughter of someone who had finally heard something that made all the other madness comprehensible. "Oh my God!" she managed between laughs. "Oh my God! Of course he did!" "Where's Reeves from?" "A city called Detroit, North American continent," I supplied. Williams laughed harder. "Detroit! Of course it's Detroit. Commander, did Reeves by any chance mention his living conditions before military service?" "He compared his apartment to the torture chamber and said the apartment was worse," Zenara said dryly. "That tracks," Williams said, wiping her eyes. "Okay, let me explain something about humans, specifically humans from economically struggling urban areas. We adapt. We adapt to everything. You want to know how humans conquered Earth? We didn't outfight the predators or outthink the environment. We just stubbornly refused to let anything stop us from getting what we needed, including sleep." "But the chamber produces extreme psychological stress," I protested. "So does poverty," Williams shot back. "So does working 16-hour days in dangerous conditions. So does living in places where violence and noise and chaos are just part of the background. Humans from those environments develop an almost supernatural ability to function despite everything. We call it resilience, but honestly, it's more like weaponized stubbornness." "Are you telling me," Relic said slowly, "that humans can be trained to resist torture simply by living in difficult neighborhoods?" "Not trained, Commander. Forged. There's a distinction. And it's not just difficult neighborhoods. Humans have slept in trenches during warfare, in freezing mountains, in sweltering deserts, in vehicles, in medical facilities, while being actively shot at. We have documented cases of soldiers falling asleep during artillery barrages. We have sailors who slept through storms that should have killed them. We have people who work night shifts for decades and learn to sleep during the day, despite noise, light, and every possible disturbance." "This is insane," I muttered. "Welcome to humanity," Williams said cheerfully. "We're all a little bit insane. It's how we survived long enough to reach the stars." She continued, "Look, Commander, if you want to understand humans, you need to accept one fundamental truth. We're persistence incarnate. We're not the strongest species, not the smartest, not the fastest, but we absolutely refuse to quit. And that includes refusing to let anything interrupt our sleep once we've decided we need it." "So Reeves's performance is normal?" Shinara asked. "For a human who grew up in challenging conditions, absolutely. You want to really test human endurance? Put someone from a comfortable background in there. They'll probably break faster. But someone like Reeves, who grew up learning to function despite chaos, that chamber probably felt like a hotel to him." After we ended the call, the three of us sat in silence, processing this information. "I don't like this," I finally said. "If one human can do this, how many others could?" "That's the question, isn't it?" Relic rumbled. "Doctor, Sarah, I want you to review all the human cadets in the current class, specifically their backgrounds and upbringing. Kelvin, I want you to redesign the torture resistance evaluation protocols. If humans can simply sleep through our current systems, we need new approaches. Sir, I said carefully, what if we can't? What if humans are just fundamentally different in ways that make our traditional methods ineffective? Then we adapt, Relic said firmly. Just like they do. Now, both of you, dismissed. We have work to do. Over the next several days, news of Reeves's accomplishment spread throughout the academy. Other cadets began requesting permission to attempt the chamber, particularly the humans. We denied most of them, citing safety concerns and the need to revise protocols. But the damage was done. The torture resistance chamber, once feared by every species in the galaxy, had been thoroughly demystified by one sleepy human from Detroit. I found Reeves in the training yard a week later, conducting exercises with his unit. He had been assigned to a mixed-species tactical squad, and I observed as he coordinated with a Rexian scout, a Thoraxian heavy weapons specialist, and a Prelian medic. They were practicing urban assault scenarios, and Reeves was calmly and efficiently calling out positions and orders. When the exercise concluded, I approached Cadet Reeves. A moment of your time. Of course, sir, he said, slightly out of breath, but still composed. I wanted to ask you something, I began, choosing my words carefully. When you were in the chamber, did you actually not feel afraid? The hallucinations, the discomfort, the psychological pressure, none of it bothered you? Reeves considered this, wiping sweat from his forehead. I felt it, sir. I'm not immune to fear or discomfort, but I've learned that feeling something and being controlled by it are two different things. The chamber tried to make me panic, tried to make me break, but I've been scared before. I've been uncomfortable before, and I learned a long time ago that the best response to fear is often just to close your eyes, breathe steadily, and wait for morning. That's simple, I asked skeptically. That's simple, he confirmed. Though I admit the chamber tried really hard. Some of those hallucinations were creative. But at the end of the day, I knew it wasn't real. I knew I was safe, and I knew I was tired. So And if it had been real, if you were actually captured by enemy forces? Reeves' expression turned serious. Then I'd still do my best to rest when I could, sir. Because if I'm going to escape, or resist, or survive, I need to be functional. Panic doesn't help. Fear doesn't help. But sleep helps. Always has, always will. I looked at this ordinary human, this factory worker from a troubled city on a relatively young species home world, and I realized something profound. The galaxy had spent thousands of years developing sophisticated torture methods, psychological warfare techniques, and resistance training. We had assumed that breaking someone required finding their weakness and exploiting it, but humans had taken a different approach. They had simply resolved that nothing, absolutely nothing, would impede them from attending to their fundamental necessities. Not fear, not agony, not psychological warfare, nor even military-grade interrogation chambers. It wasn't that they were immune to suffering. They simply refused to yield control to it. Thank you, Cadet, I said. Finally dismissed, he jogged back to his unit. I made a mental note to revise my training materials. The section on human psychology would require significant expansion. That evening, as I was finalizing paperwork, Pellic scuttled into my office, her antenna quivering with excitement. Sir, you must see this, she exclaimed, pulling up a data file on my terminal. It was a compilation of records from other human military forces on Earth, specifically documentation of soldiers sleeping in improbable circumstances. There were images of humans slumbering in combat zones during training exercises, in vehicles, on hard floors, amidst extreme temperatures, and even suspended in harnesses during parachute operations. One image depicted a human soldier soundly asleep in a fighting position while his squad mates conducted combat drills mere meters away. Another showed a group of humans napping in a pile during Arctic warfare training, evidently using one another for warmth. A third featured a human who had nodded off while standing in formation, with her squad positioned around her to obscure the fact from their instructors. "They're all like this," Pellick stated, her voice imbued with disbelief. Every human military possesses records of soldiers sleeping in absurd situations. It's not an anomaly, it's a species-wide trait. I gazed at the images, experiencing a blend of admiration and profound existential concern. "Pelix," I uttered slowly, "I believe we may have severely underestimated humanity." "Sir, there's more," she added, pulling up another file. I discovered psychological studies from Earth regarding something they term spite sleeping. Apparently, some humans will deliberately sleep in uncomfortable or challenging situations merely to prove their capability. "Spite sleeping?" I echoed. "They sleep out of spite?" "Yes, sir. There are documented instances of humans sleeping through fire alarms, natural disasters, and medical emergencies simply because someone told them they wouldn't be able to sleep through those things." I closed my eyes, the equivalent for my species of a deep sigh. Of course they do. Why wouldn't they? 3 months later, the Galactic Military Academy completely revamped its torture resistance training program. The chamber was still in use, but with modified protocols that accounted for humanity's apparent capacity to simply disregard reality when it became inconvenient. We also introduced a new course titled Human Endurance: Understanding Persistent Psychology. It became mandatory for all command track students, regardless of species. As for Cadet Marcus Reeves, he graduated at the top of his class in survival training. Although his academic scores were consistently average, he received a commendation for exceptional mental fortitude under extreme conditions, which he accepted with the same composed expression he had worn upon exiting the torture chamber. At the graduation ceremony, Commander Vela delivered a speech concerning adaptation, resilience, and the importance of comprehending your allies' distinctive aptitudes. He did not explicitly mention the torture chamber incident, but everyone understood his reference. After the ceremony, I found Reeves standing alone, gazing up at the stars visible through the Academy's transparent dome. "Big galaxy out there, Cadet," I remarked, approaching him. "Yes, sir," he agreed. "Lots to see, lots to do." "Are you apprehensive about your first assignment?" He smiled faintly. "A little, sir, but I figure if I could sleep through your torture chamber, I can handle whatever the galaxy throws at me." "That's a remarkably confident assessment." "With respect, sir, I'm from Detroit. The galaxy's got nothing on Detroit." And you know what? After everything I'd witnessed, I actually believed him. The final report I submitted to Galactic Command included a recommendation that subsequently became official policy. When evaluating species for psychological resistance training, always consider their environmental background and adaptive capabilities. Do not assume that sophistication equates to effectiveness. Sometimes, the most potent defense against psychological warfare isn't